Alright, and I'm back. It's been a while, and as I promised from last time, I'm here to tackle this stupid question from Shock of God. Do you have any proof or evidence that atheism is true? And the first thing I gotta do when I answer this question is point out the fact that if you're asking the question like this, you A, either don't understand what atheism is, or B, you're purposely trying to use an appeal to people's ignorance of the subject of atheism to win what I would like to call idiot points, which are basically debate points that go in your favor, but they only go in your favor because everyone in the audience is an idiot and they don't understand the proper way to phrase the question, which is why you phrase it improperly to support your dumbass little proposition. So while you may be able to win some idiot points, in the real world, asking for the proof or evidence that atheism is true is just stupid, because you don't need evidence for atheism to be true. It is the position you take when you have no evidence for any of the other propositions being true. It is in fact a negative position. But since you're an idiot, and since you're going to phrase it in the idiot way, I'll go ahead and give you the idiot response. Okay? The proof, first of all, no proof. This is not fucking math class. There's no absolute certainties. We can give you evidence that shows likely probability. That's all we can do. There is no absolute proof. Okay? Now, since you're wanting me to show evidence for a negative position, I'm going to have to use negative evidence to support the negative position. I hope that makes sense to you. It will in a second. Let's take your God claim, the Christian God claim in particular. Okay? When you don't have any evidence to support that claim, then that claim is most likely false. Okay? And when that claim is most likely false, then atheism would be the most probable and most likely position that would be accurate, and the one that you should probably take, because playing the odds is always in your favor. Okay? Then we look at a bunch of other God claims. We got, the Hindu gods, and we got Muslims, and we got the Jewish God, and your Christian God, and we got, the Greek pantheon, and the Roman gods, and blah, blah, blah. We've got God after God after God after God. Now we can look at all those God claims, and we can see that none of them has evidence. Well, they have evidence, just really shitty evidence. None of them has any good evidence to support them. And that's my negative evidence that I'm using to support my negative position of atheism. You see, every time we look at one of these God claims and we find out that it's most likely not true because there's no evidence for it, that adds up to negative evidence against the claim, or for the claim of a negative position, which is atheism. The position that none of them have been proven. It's as simple as that. My evidence that atheism is the most likely, the most accurate position is that none of the other positions have evidence. And since it's the starting point, it's the point that you start from before you have evidence for anything, there's multiple reasons that atheism is probably the best position to take. Is it guaranteed to be true? No. But you're playing the odds here. It's probably accurate. Atheism isn't true unless you're an idiot. It's most likely accurate. Okay? Now, you don't even need to go that far You don't have to go into the whole negative evidence supporting a negative position. While it is handy, and you can do it, and you can show reasonably that over the course of, the last several thousand years, that people have been making these God claims, and that each one of those God claims that fails to live up to its burden of proof supplies a small amount of negative atheism, of negative evidence for the position of atheism, which is a negative position. Okay? Imagine a game board where you got the starting position. That's atheism. Is the starting position. Okay? The game starts with your piece on the atheist square. Now, if you get some sort of evidence, then you could take your little character and move him to a different part of the board, depending on which, what type of evidence you found and which faith it supports. But you should always start from a position of not believing shit until it's proven. And that is atheism. Okay? This question, what is your evidence that atheism is true? Its sole purpose is to win idiot points. There is no other point to asking this question. You're relying on the ignorance of your audience of atheism and the subjects that surround it to make that point seem like a good one. I mean, you're basically using the ignorance of your own audience. And I don't think you're ignorant. I think you understand quite well. And I think people have answered this question many a times. That first of all, it's an improper phrasing of the question, and second of all, even if you phrase it stupid, we can still, show why atheism is the most likely the most accurate position. Now, instead of asking what's the proof or evidence that atheism is true, since it's difficult to prove a negative concept like that. In fact, it's not possible to. It is possible to disprove very specific concepts of a God, but if you leave it open enough, it's almost impossible to disprove. What you can do is phrase the question like this: why should I accept atheism as the default and most likely the most accurate position? That would be a good way to phrase the question, because then people could explain to you, well, none of the claims about gods have lived up to their burden of proof, and since you don't change your position until something has been proven, and the default position is atheism, that's where you stand. And it's as simple as that. And I don't know why. I do know why. It's a difficult concept to comprehend. Proving a negative position. You don't really prove a negative position. You disprove. You don't prove a negative position. You prove a positive position. And the positive positions are that there's gods. Atheism is not a claim to knowledge. It is a claim that none of these other claims have been proven. Okay? So that's my big shock of God rant as to why I think it's just absolutely absurd that he's going around going, what's the evidence that atheism is true? Well, first of all, don't phrase the question like that, because you're probably not going to get a satisfactory answer, because there's not really a good way to answer the question. But even if you ask the question stupid like that, I will use negative evidence to show that a negative position is more likely. Okay? That we can do. And if you want to add up all the God claims that have failed to meet their burden of proof, and you want to add up all the negative evidence, that shows that there's a very small likelihood for you being correct in your position. Oh, man. So, there you go, cock of God. Have fun with that. And next time you come up with a question, make sure you phrase it properly. I've seen people's heads explode trying to wrap their head around the concept of your question. And while it's a clever little trick that may score idiot points, anyone who pays attention or anyone who looks up a refutation to your argument is going to see how crap it is. Alright, I'm out of here. Look forward to my next video. It'll be about Christmas, since that time of the year is coming up pretty quick.